I'm back, baby! Bigger, stronger, and more technologically competent in this new episode of BattleTIPS, featuring the Delta Bases. Now, this was supposed to be that prize video for the Armory way long ago, but since the Armory updated, I had to do some extra research and do some extra stuff and planning because there were just way too many cards and I couldn't cover all of them in one video without boring all of you to death. So I've decided to chop up all of those cards in specific sets, such as bases or specific card types, so that you guys have a main theme for each video, and then at the end I'll culminate in a way to how to build your character or specific build paths you can take. One thing I realized when analyzing these bases is that they're basically alternatives or side grades to your regular alpha bases. So instead of having stuff like Strike, you'll have stuff like Stagger instead. This is very important to take note because many of the advantages and disadvantages that are carried by the original bases are still present in the many advantages and disadvantages you can find in the Delta bases. Now note that just because a specific alpha base beats a specific other alpha base doesn't mean that the Delta equivalent will beat that Delta equivalent. This means that if you play the Delta bases as a Delta duel, wherein both you and the opponent only have Delta bases in place of the Alpha bases, it kind of means that certain cards are going to be way stronger than others. For example, Sweep, which is the alternative to Burst, is just so good against all the other Delta bases because almost all the Delta bases only hit at range 1 and Sweep dodges everything at range 1. This is what I mean, because usually Burst will beat out maybe 2 of the alpha bases but be beaten by 2 other alpha bases. Now without further ado, let's get to the bases. First up is our Dash equivalent, which is Block. Block has many advantages that Dash does not have. Number 1, it's not Dash counterable, meaning that if you can't switch sides with your opponent, that's fine, you can still gain the defensive benefits. Aside from that, it works very well against opponents who are fast and have ways of becoming active player regardless of priority. This means you are still able to gain a defensive advantage because the soak 3 is oftentimes more than enough to soak all the incoming damage. As remember, the average damage a player can take is 3 per beat. Aside from this, having effective Stun Guard 6 means that Block allows you to get your activation almost all the time regardless of how much damage your opponent is putting out. This is very useful, especially if you have styles that have certain effects that you want to activate safely. And the biggest benefit of all is that the end of beat allows you to move 1, 2, or 3 spaces, much like Dash does. However, being end of beat is very good, because even if you are stunned, you still get to move, unlike Dash's after activating effect. This proves to be very useful when it comes to getting into the position you want and need for the situation. Remember, Block is very safe, but at the same time, you're sacrificing Dash's ability to ignore all damage coming from the opponent, so be wary about that. Next up is Catch, and it's great for middlers, brawlers, and speedsters because it's an alternative to Grasp, so it's very fast but lacks a bit of range. However, one of Grasp's biggest weaknesses, in that it only deals 2 damage, is irrelevant now because Catch's power is equal to the printed power of your opponent's attack pair. Note that printed power refers to the power value on the style plus the power value on the base. Any bonuses from UAs and whatever don't count. With this in mind, this attack basically almost always trades evenly with the opponent, and depending on your style, you will almost always trade up on your opponent, which means that it's amazing against Juggernauts who tend to have really high power values, or maybe some brawlers who have really high power values as well. Note that it still has an on-hit push, you can't pull people towards you anymore, but that push can be very useful when it comes to brawling and dodging opponents' attacks. It's a very good trade for your Grasp. Heck, if you want, trade any other base for it or just add it to your pile because it's just that good. Next up is Stagger, which is your alternative to Strike. It's very, very good if you're a Brawler, Juggernaut, or Speedster. Actually, it's almost good for anybody because of the stats it gives. The average priority coupled in with the light amount of stun guard make it really good for Brawlers who have decent amounts of both. Speedsters can be really fast and hit people for 4, and Juggernauts can use the stun guard to assure that they will hit you no matter how much damage they take. What's really interesting about this is that you sacrifice the heck of a lot of stun guard from Strike and gain the ability to push the opponent's spaces, and the added benefit of ignoring stun guard if they happen to be at the end of the board when you finish that movement effect. So all in all, you're sacrificing that stun guard for more ability to brawl and push your opponent around, while also giving you the possibility of stunning the opponent who has a lot of stun guard, which again makes us very good against Brawlers and Juggernauts because of their need for stun guard and proper positioning to hit. All in all, it's a powerful base, but remember that Stun Guard 2 isn't enough, as the Magical Stun Guard 3 is what you need to reliably not get stunned. So if you don't have any Stun Guard on your cards or abilities, it might not be that good of a card to include in your kit. Otherwise, if you do have enough Stun Guard or speed to take advantage of this card, by all means put it in, it's amazing. Next up is Sweep, which is our alternative to Burst. Now whereas Burst dodges melee attacks by start of beat retreating, this one just straight up dodges melee attacks, as the passive effect states that attacks at range 1 don't hit you. This is powerful. Really, 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 really powerful, especially if you're a character who gets in melee a lot. This means that characters like Speedsters, Brawlers, and Juggernauts will benefit from it a lot. Note that whereas Drive usually beats regular Burst, Sweep just ignores that and totally, undoubtedly destroys Drive. So keep that in mind when putting Sweep into your kit, and it's a high recommend from me, especially if the matchup calls for a lot of melee fighting. Again, this is practically useless outside of being in melee, so be very careful about that. Leap is an excellent addition to almost anybody's kit, especially if the matchup calls for a lot of ranged fighting. However, it's your alternative to Shock, but it only has range 1. That's because the passive effect allows you to dodge attacks at range 3 and 4, and then before activating you can go in and swack the opponent in the face. Really hard. However, the problem there becomes that it doesn't have Shock's regular big range and stun guard 2. That's a bit of a problem because sometimes you want the range because you can't get near the opponent in the first place, be it because of their markers or certain effects. And of course, the stun guard is really, really good when paired with certain characters' styles. Also, there's an added con that you can't use this at big ranges, like range 5 and 6, because you can't dodge opponents from that range, which Shot, on the other hand, is able to do handily with its stun guard. So keep that in mind when subbing Shot out for this base. Otherwise, it's pretty good, but only in mid to long range situations, so keep an eye on that. And finally, we have Lunge, which is really good if you're a Brawler, Middler. Actually, almost any character can heavily benefit from Lunge because of all of the movement that's on it. It's your alternative to Drive, and in place of being able to advance 1 or 2 spaces, you're only able to move 1 space before activating, and then move another space after activating. That clause in itself is very powerful. Move instead of advance, meaning that you can actually use this to dodge your opponent's attacks, especially if they're only melee in range. Also, you can do it twice, so you can dodge twice whenever you want, because this base has really fast priority to boot. It's a very, very good base. However, it doesn't have as much hit confirm as your regular Drive does. So be wary about that. It makes it really good against opponents who aren't big on hit confirm, so that's probably Juggernauts and certain Speedsters and certain Brawlers as well. So it's all about range management with this card, and it's very powerful if you get to use it correctly. And that pretty much does it for this episode of BattleTIPS. I hope I was able to help all of you analyze the Delta bases better and to see some of their good and low points. Remember that this is part of a big series of Armory videos. So if you want to watch the next one, it'll probably come out, well, after this one. I can't give you guys an exact date, but it'll come out soon-ish. It really depends on a bunch of other factors and whatnot. Tell me what you guys think about the video. It's a different format. I'm trying to be faster here, trying to give you more of a general strategy. Because the thing about the Delta bases is that I can't give you guys a Pentagon or any of those deep strategical things because it's just such a volatile environment. Things change all the time. I can't give you specific matchup things or things like that or specific interactions because again, when going into the Armory fight, you won't know what the heck is coming at you because your opponent can make a different character almost every single time. So be very, very careful about that. It's all about adaptation and knowing what's to come. Speaking of knowing what's to come, the other videos will come sooner or later, and I hope you guys stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you have any comments, concerns, or if you like level 99 games and you want to learn more about them or learn more about these bases, you can check the descriptions out below for the wiki, for the level 99 games website, and all of that fun and amazing stuff. I hope you guys really like the green screen. I worked hard in order to make this green screen thing work, and I hope that it's added to the clarity of the video in a way, because not everything seems so cluttered anymore, right? Okay, aside from that, don't forget your special action, and thank you, World of Indines. Thank you, and good night.